Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Spearhead Sundays podcast. I'm your host, Lewis Spears. I have returned from my birthday break, took last weekend off. It was my birthday, spent it in the city, had a great time. We'll talk about that later. If you missed me, I put up 2 episodes on Patreon this week if you want to catch a bunch of stuff. That's the best place to support what I do. There's a bunch of extra content on there, extra podcast every single week, and early access to things as I make them, and that's how we're going to keep everything funding. I've got a lot to say, but first I want to talk about this new hate speech law that's been passed in Australia. Also, we're bringing back the emails, all right? I've been printing documents for the show. I've had a vision of how I want Spearhead Sundays to be and how I want to produce the show and do it. I think this year is going to be really great for the show, and that's mostly down to me actually doing some prep work for once. So if you want to send an email to the show, send it through to podcast@loosespears.com. If you need some life advice, if you have a story you want to tell me, if you want my opinion on something, I will print them out, put them on my desk here, and read through them one by one. Rather than just leaving them in my fucking emails and then never looking at them again, I'm going to print them and I'll have them there. So that way I've always got an email to go. All right. So podcast@loosespears.com. We're going to do a few at the end of the episode. But first, I want to talk about these hate speech laws that have passed in Parliament in Australia. These seem to be incredibly poorly thought out, really rushed, dystopian free speech violations to me. That's what this is. They've used the Bondi shooting to fearmonger the population into accepting a massive, vague, ill-defined restriction on our speech that I've been watching interviews of politicians being asked very direct, simple questions about what can and what can we not say. And they are refusing to answer these very direct questions. I watched more than one politician on more than one interview from more than one journalist and news platforms refuse to say if criticizing Israel's behavior in Gaza, they refuse to say if that could get you charged with a hate crime. They refuse to say whether or not it's okay to say that Israel is doing a genocide. Now, whether or not you think they're doing one, I want to get into America. So I love Israel and they've never done a bad thing. But whether or not you think they've done it is irrelevant to the point where we actually are not being reassured that it's okay to discuss the behavior of a foreign nation because there's a lot of Jews that live there, right? So if we can't say that, if you can't criticize Israel's behavior because it's a predominantly Jewish country, you might get charged with hate speech or a hate crime. The same logic, the same rules that they've just introduced, surely could then get you prosecuted for criticizing the actions of Hamas, right? Or Palestinians, because they're mostly Muslim. This seems to be like if politicians have passed a law that they literally cannot simply define in clear terms for the layman, us, the people who will be affected by this law and prosecuted by it, if they can't describe what is and what is not okay in simple terms, then obviously they've just created this fucking law that enables them to censor at will, prosecute at will. They get to make up their own definition of hate speech and illegal thoughts and then use that incredibly broad legislation that they've introduced to target whoever the fuck they want. Now, obviously, I don't want violent neo-Nazis creating terrorist cells. I also don't want hate preachers and radical imams radicalizing Muslim youth to become more violent. I also don't want, fucking radical leftist violent groups that want to use violence against certain ethnicities, religions. Like, obviously, all of this violent extremist stuff, nobody wants. And I actually think that stuff is pretty easy to stamp out and it's pretty clear and easy to identify what is a hate group that is intentionally trying to stir up violence and what is not. But I don't think that's the law that they want to pass. They don't want to pass a law that makes it super easy to classify a Muslim cleric as inciting violence and terrorism. They don't want that. They want a incredibly broad, open to interpretation set of vague rules and legislations that can allow them to prosecute whoever they want for whatever reason they want, for tweets, for posts, for saying the wrong word at a rally or a protest or in a group chat, right? This all ties into the fucking Online Safety Act bullshit that they've been pushing here. This ties into the internet safety bill to keep children off social media, which is actually just to destroy anonymity online so that they can monitor what everyone is saying and prosecute whoever they want at will, right? So anyway, I've pulled up this article by the ABC that attempts to explain these laws and ask some questions, right? And you just see how incredibly vague this is. New hate laws have passed Parliament. What do they actually do? And this fucking article is like 5 pages long and they don't really answer it because no one knows, not even the fucking politicians that passed it. Parliament has just passed the toughest federal hate speech laws in Australia's history, and no one can tell me what it is. Labor has been open that the legislation introduced in the wake of the Bondi terror attack is primarily aimed at tackling hate groups that promote anti-Semitism, and that revisiting the laws to include other minority groups is not a priority. So already they're calling it hate speech laws, but it's not hate speech laws. It's just laws to protect one group, right? Which makes no fucking sense. If you are only protecting one group from speech, you elevate that group above everyone else, and now you can't criticize this group for any reason. And guess what breeds way more anti-Semitism? Right? This anti-Semitic belief that Jews run the world and you can't criticize them or whatever, like this plays directly into that. And am I going to get arrested for saying that? I don't know. Luckily, this is a solo podcast, so I can't possibly be categorized as a hate group. The legislation passed with Liberal Party support, though the Nationals, Greens, and One Nation voted against it, citing various concerns around free speech. Great. So the Nationals, Greens, and One Nation are gonna form the most schizophrenic coalition in history. And somehow they'll get along better than the Liberals and the Nationals do. For all my American listeners, Liberals in Australia are the right-wing party. They're like centre-right here in Australia. Labor's draft legislation, by the way, excuse my incredibly pale legs. It is 40 degrees in this hellhole of a country. White people should not live here. We're not built for it. I walk my dog for 7 minutes. I come home with skin cancer. We shouldn't be here. All right? The Australia Day's coming up. The sun is so harsh that I'm thinking, you know what? We all got to leave for our own good. We got to give it back to the Aboriginals, but just the really dark ones, because I think they're the only people that can fucking take the UV in this ozoneless country. I'm sick of it. I hate the heat. It's 41 degrees today. I was going to do my podcast yesterday. I got to go to my parents' house for my birthday. I'm staying there for this weekend. I got to go on the train because I don't have a fucking car I can drive, but I got no car. I was like, oh, I'll get up really early, 6 in the morning, and I'll just leave before it gets hot. Well, guess what? I didn't do my podcast yesterday because I was feeling sad. And now I'm not going to finish this until fucking 1 or 2 p.m. And I'm going to go out in the sun in 42-degree heat and be like, I'm going to catch the train for an hour. Fuck. We need to get Whitey out of this country for our own good. I saw a woman this morning that had beautiful, muscular runner's legs, an incredible athletic body, and then I looked at her face and she looked 85 because white people are not supposed to be in the sun in this country. We got to give it back. I don't know why the Chinese want this place. It's not for you either. All right, you guys, it's too hot. We need to give it back to the Aboriginals and the Sudanese, and they can fight over the shopping centers. I think we know who's going to win that fight. What am I doing? Where did the laws land? Labor's draft legislation included a provision to criminalize the promotion or incitement of racial hatred. Okay. Which is a recommendation of anti-Semitic envoy Gillian Siegel and broadly supported by Jewish groups. Despite calling for Ms. Siegel's report to be implemented in full, various coalition members raised concerns the draft bill would excessively infringe on free speech, a position shared by the Greens, constitutional lawyers, and various faith leaders. After both the coalition and Greens rejected the new offense, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese dumped it. So, but what does that mean? They got rid of criminalizing the promotion or incitement of racial hatred, but they kept the stuff that just criminalizes anti-Semitism? Is that what that means? Revisiting the laws to include other minority groups is not a priority. Right, so this is not hate speech laws. This is like don't talk about Israel laws. Awesome. Which I agree with as an aspiring immigrant to the United States. I think that's good. Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke this week said that the government would have liked the laws to be even stronger, but what has passed represented the strongest hate laws Australia's ever had. The laws grant powers for the government to list so-called hate groups more easily, deport or cancel the visas of individuals associated with hate groups, increase penalties for hate crime offences, and create new aggravated penalties for hate preachers and leaders who advocate violence. Right, so you're about to see a unprecedented uptick in visa denials. Any rapper that's ever made a joke or a pun about Jews or another race or anything like that is going to get denied access into the country. Mel Gibson will never be seen here ever again. All right, so they're granting powers for the government to list so-called hate groups more easily and create new aggravated penalties. Right, so they're using this law to create new penalties. So this law has passed, and it's given them the power to just create new laws that don't even exist yet that we don't know about, and neither do they. Awesome. So it seems like they're just given the powers to be like, oh, if we don't like what you say online, we may not be able to arrest you yet, but because we have this power to create a new penalty, we can just create a law that specifically covers what you're saying. You're fucked. Cool. That's great. What is a hate group? The legislation defines hate groups as organizations that publicly incite hatred or communal violence against a person or group due to their race or national or ethnic origin. Okay, great. I agree. To be designated, the Home Affairs Minister must be satisfied that the group has engaged in, prepared, planned, or assisted in a hate crime. But what is a hate crime? Because they've just redefined that, right? Which is now defined as conduct that would cause a reasonable person to be intimidated, to fear harassment or violence, or fear for their safety. Right, so a hate crime is now defined by someone else's feelings. So anything can be a fucking hate crime if a person with a clean bill of psychological health can go to the cops and be like, I'm scared. That's the most vague shit ever. A hate crime is something that causes someone else to be intimidated or fear harassment. So a hate crime is not actually harassing someone. It's causing someone to fear that they might be harassed. Immediately, my mind goes to when I got protested by all those Buddhist monks for making fun of the Dalai Lama. Right? I had thousands and thousands of people complain to the Melbourne Comedy Festival, to calling the police to get my show shut down because I told jokes about their guy, the Dalai fucking Lama, one of the most powerful person in their religion, a man who they literally think is God on earth. All right? If you can't make fun of, if he's hurt by jokes, he's not God. That's a bloke. Right? So, yeah, immediately, I mean, I would fit the definition of someone doing a hate crime by telling jokes about Buddhists to the point where a large section of the community came to protest my show. When in reality, I was the one that was literally actually getting harassed. I was getting death threats. I had people show up to my shows with violent intention. I had people trying to storm my venue and come upstairs and attack me. Right? But under these laws, me telling jokes about that group, I mean, if enough of them complained, it seems like a judgment could be made that a reasonable person could fear that they might be harassed. This is insane. That's not what a hate crime is. A hate crime is actually doing something or actually advocating for something, not saying something that makes someone else think like you might maybe hate them or want to hurt them. It has to be unequivocal. It has to be an actual act in the real world, physically, or it has to be an actual call to violence. Because if it's not those two things, then it can be anything. If you're defining a hate crime based on the feelings of someone else who has not actually been hurt or victimized, they just feel like they might be at some point in the future, that's insane. Critically, the minister cannot act without advice from ASIO. Well, yeah, and ASIO's done such a good job recently, haven't they? Oh, the two blokes that were on a terrorist watch list, yeah, they can have guns, and we'll let them fly out to a known ISIS hotspot to fucking train for a few weeks and come home and still have their guns. Yeah, no worries. You can trust us with determining who needs to be punished for their fucking hateful views. Insane. Before recommending a group be listed, ASIO must be satisfied that the group has engaged in activities that would likely increase the risk of politically motivated or communal violence or advocated for such violence, including in the future. The Director General and Minister do not need to observe procedural fairness in either providing advice or listing a hate group, meaning affected parties will not have the right to dispute allegations against them before they are listed as a hate group. Dude. So if you get listed as a hate group, you're just fucked. So you can say a few things that make someone feel uneasy, get listed as a hate group, and there is no recourse for you if the decision made was wrong or was an overreach. Crazy. Attorney General Michelle Rowland described the legislation as tight and capable of interpretation not only by a court, but also by our agencies. So that's her saying, yeah, it means whatever we want it to mean. This is great. We can fuck you for any reason at any moment, and if we can't, we can introduce a new penalty that allows us to. And if we do that and fuck you and it's unfair and unjust, you have zero recourse because we do not need to observe procedural fairness. It's in the law to be like, yeah, we don't have to be fair. What the fuck? Will the laws really, I wasn't going to read this whole thing, but I think I have to. Will the laws really stop hate? The government has said that the changes are primarily intended to capture groups like neo-Nazi-aligned National Socialist Network and radical Islamist group Hizb ut-Tahrir. Why can't we just get those two groups to fight each other? And then whoever wins rules. These groups' actions have so far fallen below the legal threshold of criminal conduct. Right, so they're basically saying like, oh, our hate speech laws were able to be circumvented by these neo-Nazi groups and these radical Islamist groups who are, we think, hate groups, but legally on paper, we haven't been able to do anything about it. So yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty explicitly, because these groups are smart, as every, any actually dangerous radicalized group is going to be very, very smart, very organized, very intelligent with how they move, obviously, right? So it seems like they've tried to create laws that just allow them to fuck anyone for any reason, because they haven't been able to prosecute these groups that are too smart to say something stupid enough to get themselves arrested. Which is like, yeah, okay, you'll be able to crack down. Let's say these two groups are hate groups. I'm pretty sure the National Socialist Network is a hate group, right? I have not heard of this Hizb ut-Tahrir, but they've got a lot of syllables in their name, and that's not a good sign for me. So yeah, they're like, oh, this will allow us to fuck these two groups. And it's like, okay, well, if they are genuinely dangerous groups, cool, that's good. But now you can just fuck anyone for any reason. Like, that's the problem with really loose hate speech laws. I mean, you look at what's happening in the UK, where people are literally doing more prison time for tweets than they are for sexually abusing women and children. That's what this legislation sets up, is an incredibly loose, lax definition of a hate group, a hate crime. Like, I mean, yeah, literally, the description of it is we don't need consequences. Like, we don't need your actions or your words to have any consequences before we can prosecute you. We just need someone to feel like they might, at some point, feel potentially like they could be harassed, maybe. And now you're a hate group and you're going to prison forever. Within hours of the legislation passing Parliament, Hizb ut-Tahrir erased its online presence. Well, that's not a good sign. While the National Socialist Network announced it was disbanding last week in anticipation of the laws. During a parliamentary inquiry. So now none of these... So these laws haven't caught anyone, because again, these groups are too smart for you to fuck them. One group's disbanded, the other one's erased everything. And it's just normal people that will get punished for fucking tweets, not actual hate groups, because actual hate groups are really sophisticated and really smart. What this is going to do is it's going to broaden the definition of a hate crime, which is going to clog the fucking system up so much with innocuous tweets, jokes, statements, speeches that don't cause any harm, that aren't incitements to violence, that aren't actual hate crimes. And it's going to allow real hate groups that are actually planning stuff, like these fuckwits that did Bondi, to go under the radar, because ASIO and all these other groups are going to be so clogged up with, oh, fucking Karen said this about immigrants. We got to go get her. She's 55. She works at a tuck shop. Let her be. During a parliamentary inquiry, ASIO chief Mike Burgess conceded the laws would likely see such groups simply move underground. I mean, that's exactly what I just said. The ASIO chief is like, yeah, we brought in these laws and now all these groups are going to be even harder for us to find and prosecute. Like, the fucking problem with this is like, yes, all right, National Socialist Network, obviously a hate group. I assume this other one was as well. But because they were able to be monitored, right? So while they may not be able to be prosecuted, they were able to be monitored. And if they did make steps to plan something actually horrific, ASIO could move on it. Or not that they fucking would, seeing as the last time there were people on the terrorist watch list doing terrorist training exercises in ISIS hotspots, they were like, yeah, they're probably having a holiday, no worries. So now it's like, yeah, the real bad guys are harder to catch, and just fucking boomers who have had their brains melted by Sky News are the ones that are going to be getting arrested. Of course, individuals don't cease to exist. This is a quote from Mike Burgess, the ASIO chief. Of course, individuals don't cease to exist. They're still there in society, and obviously the problematic ones we will continue to watch if they continue to be problematic, he said. But our job is to find the people who are hiding themselves in society, and we're good at that. Are ya? I'm pretty sure quite a few Jewish people lying dead in the sands of Bondi would disagree. I'm pretty sure the only two things I've seen ASIO do in the last month is completely fuck up and allow a terrorist attack to occur on the most Jewish holiday of the year. So obviously, the most likely time for something like this to happen, by two guys that were on a fucking terrorist watch list that for some reason were allowed to have guns, one guy being an immigrant, both of them flew the fuck out to train with ISIS in a known ISIS hotspot. No red flags went up. Then they were able to come home. No red flags went up when they came home. Then they spent time in an Airbnb shooting guns. Nothing happened. They were practicing, making sure their fucking guns were ready. They were making explosives that, thank God, didn't go off because they fucked it up because they didn't get the correct training required because they were stupid. And ASIO allowed all of this to happen. And then the only thing they've done since then is arrest a bunch of Muslim guys that went from Melbourne to the beach, almost fucking killed them, and then let them go. They were like, whoopsie. Now they'll probably get sued, and that'll cost the taxpayers millions of fucking dollars. That's the only two things I've seen ASIO do recently. That and pass laws that are just going to get plumbers arrested for jokes on work sites. What does it mean for protest rights? Here we fucking go. The Greens, who voted against the legislation in the Senate, described these changes as a chilling attack on political debate, protest, and civil rights. This is another thing. They're trying to stop protests in general. This will silence legitimate criticism of foreign nations undertaking human rights abuses. Who? Who are you talking about there? Greens leader Larissa Ward. Who is she speaking about? Oh, okay, sorry. I judged her too harshly and too quickly. It is not anti-Semitic to call out the actions of the Netanyahu regime in conducting a genocide. Barrister Greg Barnes said the laws would inevitably have unintended consequences and would fall subject to legal challenges. To be frank, when you read the bill, even to senior lawyers, it is unintelligible, he said. The great concern we have about banning organizations is there is no requirement for procedural fairness known as natural justice. The executive always has to be subject to checks and balances, including by the courts. Not to do so breaches the rule of law and is fundamentally undemocratic. Who would have thought the Greens would be the ones standing up for free speech and liberals would be the ones just bending over and allowing anything to happen? No wonder the liberals have just completely fucked their party. I have never liked the liberals. They are a terrible group of landlords that are just concerned with house pricing going up and boomers retiring even richer than they currently are at the expense of everyone in, I mean, millennials are fucked. Our chance is gone. Gen Z aren't even trying. Gen Alpha are watching skibbity toilet memes and are drooling. They've had their brains rotted by fucking iPads. They won't even be capable of hate speech because half of these fuckers can't even speak. Now, this is where the Attorney General Michelle Rowland has been grilled by the ABC. This is a quote from an interview where they asked her some pretty specific questions about how this law will be applied to speech and what can we and what can we not say. Not designed to prevent differences of view. When asked repeatedly if the laws would capture groups that accuse Israel of genocide or apartheid, Attorney General Michelle Rowland said there are a number of other factors that would need to be satisfied. I would be reluctant to be naming and ruling in or ruling out specific types of conduct. Well, then what the fuck are we supposed to do? If the Attorney General is passing laws and then literally saying, yeah, I wouldn't say what you can and can't do, how the fuck is any normal layman who is not a high court lawyer supposed to follow this law that cannot even be explained to you? I don't know what I can and cannot do, so how the fuck can I be beholden to a law that is incomprehensible and unexplainable to a normal, reasonable person? Don't steal, don't murder, don't hurt people. Very clear, understandable laws. If I break them, I'll be fucked. I understand those rules. I do not understand this. And it seems like the Attorney General does not either. This is another quote from her. We have been clear from the outset about the kinds of groups that we are seeking to bring within this regime. They are groups such as the National Socialist Network. Okay, they've disbanded. And Hizb ut Tahrir. They deleted their website. They're gone. You got them. Great. So we've pushed the radical extremists into further hiding their plans and their beliefs. And I'm going to get arrested for a joke. Awesome. Great work, guys. Foreign Minister Penny Wong said the legislation was very clear about trying to crack down on those who were seeking to incite criminal behavior motivated by hatred. It is not legislation which is designed to prevent differences of views and freedom of speech. But at the same time, the Attorney General is saying, yeah, I'm not going to say whether you can or cannot criticize a foreign government. But so if it's not actually designed to limit free speech, then you need to say, yeah, you can criticize Israel or Hamas or Palestine or Germany or Russia. Ultimately, though, protest organizations could be captured under the laws if ASIO deems they meet the criteria of inciting hatred or causing a reasonable person to be intimidated. I mean, what does that mean? Causing a reasonable person to be intimidated? I mean, arguably, you could say that of every single protest. It's intimidating to see a group of people yelling. Am I wrong? When you're walking around the city and you see a group of 100 people yelling and chanting anything, that's intimidating. I'm a reasonable person. Sometimes I feel intimidated by a group of people yelling. Before I know what flag they're waving, what opinion they hold, I hear the yelling, I hear the chanting, I hear the drums. It's intimidating. That's what protest is. It's disruptive, it's intimidating, and that's how we protest. If a reasonable person is intimidated by a group of people yelling, every protest is a hate group. You can't protest at all. Will the laws stop radicalization? I wonder. Among the other key changes in this legislation is the introduction of a new aggravated offense for adults who seek to radicalize children. I mean, cool. Why didn't we have this law before? According to the AFP, Australian Federal Police data, 48 youths aged between 12 and 17 have been investigated by joint counter-terrorism teams since 2020, with 25 charged with one or more Commonwealth terrorism-related offences. Gee, I wonder if any of the people included in that number were radicalised by the AFP themselves. Autistic Muslim boy radicalised by police, Australia. How Australian undercover police fed an autistic 13-year-old's fixation with Islamic State. This happened last year. Court finds counter-terrorism units' conduct fell profoundly short of minimum standards expected of law enforcement officers. Counter-terrorism police encountered an autistic 13-year-old boy in his Counterterrorism police encouraged an autistic 13-year-old boy in his fixation on Islamic State in an undercover operation after his parents sought help from the authorities. The boy, given the pseudonym Thomas Carrick, I mean, they could have called him Muhammad Carrick, was later charged with terror offences after an undercover officer fed his fixation and doomed the rehabilitation efforts of Thomas and his parents had engaged in. The Children's Court magistrate found Thomas spent 3 months in custody before he was granted bail in October after an earlier bail was revoked because he failed to comply with conditions. Thomas, an NDIS recipient with an IQ of 71, was first reported to police by the Victorian Department of Health and Human Services and then by his parents because of his fixation with the IS, which included him accessing extremist material online and making threats to other students. On April 2021, his parents went to a police station and asked for help because Thomas was watching Islamic State-related videos on his computer and had asked his mother to buy bomb-making ingredients such as sulfur and acetone. And then, after his parents did the right thing, went to the police for help with their autistic child, they further radicalized him, made him more of a threat to us, the public. Is the AFP going to be charged as a hate group? Because I know these laws that they've just brought in are retrospective. This is what's so infuriating about these laws is the justification for these laws continually keeps getting pointed back to ASIO and our government entities that by their behavior and by their failures with the Bondi attack and their fucked up arrest of other Muslim kids that were not a threat and their further radicalization of autistic kids, who knows how many people they've done this to. We need to trust them to stop radicalization. We know that they are radicalizing our own youth. Could you fucking imagine you are a Muslim or a Christian or a Jewish person and you have a radicalized child who's autistic and you read that story. You read that story about parents who did the right thing, that went to police for help. And instead of helping them, instead of getting resources to this kid, they instead made him more dangerous. If you're a Muslim parent and you're worried about your son's fixation, behavior online, engaging with hate groups that are now even more difficult to find, why the fuck would you ever go to the police now for help after reading stories like that? Obviously you wouldn't. So if that's what our government agencies are doing to Muslims that are doing the right thing, that are looking for help to de-radicalize their child, how are we supposed to trust the government with de-radicalizing anyone? Of the 25, 54% identified as being religiously motivated, 22% as ideologically motivated, and 11% had a mixed or unclear ideology, with 13% yet to be determined. AFP Commissioner Chrissy Barrett has outlined a growing trend towards ideologically motivated mixed or unclear motivation, highlighting the difficulty authorities face in identifying and monitoring potential violent actors. Yeah, I mean, so essentially they've brought in laws that don't affect the actually dangerous people at all, are only going to affect normal, reasonable people and protesters and people who are critical of foreign governments. And the justification for this is to trust agencies that have repeatedly failed us in the past. Levi West, a counterterrorism researcher at the Australian National University, said the legislation was unlikely to shift the dial on this complex social issue. It is unclear to me which aspects of this legislation would have prevented the Bondi attacks from taking place. Yeah. Youth radicalization is something that can happen to anyone in the right circumstances, especially if their parents go to the AFP for help. It is very difficult to monitor or to know at what point someone who may be ideologically radicalized might turn to violence, or if that will ever happen. The AFP has tasked a senior operational psychologist to undertake analysis of the 48 youth matters to help identify trends and behaviors among them. They are due to report later this year. These laws are not going to keep us safer. They are just going to be used against us to censor our speech, to make protest more difficult, and to control the populace and discourse online. This doesn't stop anyone. If anything, it makes hate groups even more careful and even more calculating and even more dangerous and hidden from view. So awesome. Anyway, I've been yelling about that for 41 minutes. How's your week been? Hey, how's your week been? I've had a week. I've had a great week. I've had a stressful week. I had my birthday, stayed in the city for a night. That was awesome. Took the dog. Oh, I love taking my dog to hotels, man. I love taking my 42 kilo massive beast of a dog into elevators full of Chinese tourists. Oh, they're terrified of it. They do not like it. It's so funny. And she's so sweet and she's so gentle and she would never hurt a fly. And people are terrified of her. And it brings me great joy. And I'm a good owner. All right. If the elevator's too packed, I don't bring her in the elevator. I make her sit. I make her lie down. She listens to me. She doesn't get in anyone's personal space. I'm not one of those fucking idiots that has their dog on a choker chain and it could maul a toddler at any point. She's under my control and she's very well behaved. But people who have not been raised with dogs, Asian people, Muslim people, Pakistani people, they don't like her because she's scary, because she's so huge and she looks like a foul beast. And she is, and I love her very much. And she's a gentle giant, and fuck, it makes me laugh when I get in an elevator and everyone just backs up against the corner and the wall. And she sits there completely oblivious to the disgust on everyone's face. Brings me great joy. She loves it, man. Taking her into the city, gets lots of smells. It's awesome. I love my dog so much, man. I love being able to be like, all right, I'm not feeling it today. I'm struggling to write. Let's go for a walk. And she's like, fuck yeah, let's do it. I walk every morning. And then in the middle of the day, if I'm bashing my head against an edit, or I'm trying to write something, or I'm sitting down in my chair trying to hit record on the podcast equipment, but I'm just not feeling it. And I look at her, I'm like, all right, let's go. She's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's smell. I love my dog so much. She's 42 kilos. When she shits, she fills up 2 poo bags, 2 handfuls of shit. I don't like that about her. Sometimes, very rarely, the bag will break and I don't notice. And then I put my ungloved fingers into her shit. And it's disgusting. It makes me want to vomit. And then I'm halfway between home and I'm halfway between a bathroom. So I just got to have dog shit hands for 10 minutes on my way back, reminding myself that I actually do love the dog, because all I really want to do is let go of the lead near a busy road because I've got shit hands. But I love my dog. She's beautiful. Dude, with the animals, I've had a fucking stressful time because my cat, right, lady, she's 14 years old. She's ancient, but you wouldn't be able to tell because she's so lively and sprightly. She's got 2 brain cells to rub together. She's a moron. She's the least intelligent. She's barely sentient. All right, and she's one of those cats that I know is going to live forever. You ever see those cats where they're like they look more like a cat that's been hit by a car than one that's alive, and they just wander around the house. Their eyes are gray, and they just won't die. That's going to be my cat. She's too dumb to die. She knows 2 things: breakfast time and dinner time. I don't know how, and none of the other animals know it, but as soon as it hits 7 a.m., she's on my chest screaming. As soon as it hits 6 p.m., she's staring at me next to the bowl yelling. She will never die. She doesn't have time to die because breakfast is coming soon. Like that's going to be her whole life revolves around waiting for breakfast and then waiting for dinner and yelling at me if I'm even 2 minutes late. And I picked her up the other day and she had this massive lump underneath her armpits, like a scary, hard lump. I thought, oh no, this is some sort of cancerous tumor, right? And cancer's been on the mind because we've had that in our family, humans. So I'm thinking, oh my God, she's got cancer. It came out of nowhere. I'm feeling her, being like, when did this, how long has she had this? What's going on? Take her to the vet. We get it like, they put a syringe in it and they pull all this liquid out and they got to get it tested. I'm freaking out about this cat. Right? Here she is here. I love her so much. Freaking out about this cat. We get it tested. They syringe all this liquid out. The vets go, we've never seen this before in our lives. We don't know what this is. Right? We need to send this off for tests. $400 to get her fucking lump tested. $400. I don't have $400, but I don't have the mental bandwidth for a dead cat. So I figured spend $400 or lose thousands of dollars to grief and despair. I'm saving my cat's life. I will not let her die. Get the test. The next day, I pick her up and it's right here, this little lump. I touch it and I feel it explode inside, deep inside her body. I feel it explode and I feel it come out. It feels like cottage cheese going everywhere. It's disgusting. She doesn't react at all. I'm thinking, oh my God, I've just burst some organ. She's got internal bleeding. She's going to die. Zero reaction from the cat. Absolutely no reaction. Nothing. Look at her. She's got zero thoughts going on in there. Nothing happening. It's been 2 days since then. The lump is gone. I think it was just a pimple. She just had some kind of cyst or massive pimple. $400 for a fucking pimple. Stressing me out over nothing. Mwah. We love you very much. Mwah. Mwah. I think she's going to be okay. But that was great. So $400. We don't even have the test results back. I mean, at this point, I'm hoping that it's a malignant tumor, just so I haven't wasted $400 on a fucking pimple. No, we wouldn't want that to happen. So, yeah. And dude, I don't know what the fuck's happening. I take a week off for my birthday, and this is an expensive time of year for me. It's Christmas, right? And it's my birthday, and ad rates are down because no business puts money in during January, right? So I try to take like a week off and celebrate my birthday, and I also bought Christmas gifts for everyone, and then my fucking cat gets a $400 pimple, and then, right, my iPhone goes, hey, there's a new iPhone update. I'm like, oh, great, I love a new iPhone update. I'm going to update it. I've had this iPhone for, I don't even know, really, really long time. It works. I think it's a 12 Pro Max. What are we up to now? The iPhone fucking 18 or 17 or something? Nothing wrong with the phone. Nothing at all. It works totally fine. The camera's good enough. I have zero reason at all to upgrade this phone. I update to the new update. Guess what? It's firstly ugliest update I've ever seen in my life. They're doing this weird bubble glass shit. Steve Jobs is turning over in his grave. He's gonna come back from the dead to chop off the lead designer's head. It's terrible. It's ugly. It's unnecessary. Every time I unlock the phone, it does this weird bubble animation. When I send a text, it does a weird bubble animation. I feel like I've got a fucking bootleg Samsung from the Philippines. It's horrendous. I hate it. Also, it constantly reboots. It's fucked. It's completely fucked my iPhone. It's broken now. Dude, my phone has been slowing down for months. The battery has been running out for months, and now I update to the new fucking update. Every time I open the camera, it reboots. Every time I open up Instagram, it reboots. The battery lasts for 30 seconds and it dies and reboots, and it's all it has been doing for the last 2 days is showing me the fucking Apple thing, turning on for 2 seconds, going, you've got 700,000 texts, and then dying. I need a new fucking iPhone. I can't afford a new iPhone. Guys, support the show on Patreon. Please support the show on Patreon. We're doing the annual membership drive. I need a new phone. My cat got a $400 pimple. I'm not touring because I'm taking an even bigger swing. We're in a dip right now. You understand? We're in a dip because I've been juggling too many balls. I'm trying something that I've never tried in my entire career, which is like, what if I did one thing for a year? What if I just made the podcast really good and I made the videos really good and I posted stand-up clips infrequently? What would happen if I just did one thing for 1 year? And look, it's working. All right. We're in like what, week 2, I think, of me doing this properly. Maybe week 3. Week 1 was a bit of a shaky one. I was figuring it out. Week 2, I did it properly, but the views were low. Week 3, I've done it well, dude, every video, a little bit more than the last. Every podcast, a little bit more than the last. Every short clip, a little bit more than the last. I'm getting followers. I'm getting views. I'm getting comments on like every video being like, dude, I haven't watched you for 10 years. You're finally popping up in my recommended again. I haven't watched you for ages. You look good. No. I'm so glad you're back. I never left. I just never did my job properly. So we're taking a risk, okay? And the risk is, all right, here's the gamble. If I don't get enough views, I lose my house. But I think I can do it with your support on Patreon. So I'm doing a Patreon episode of the podcast every single week this year. I'm doing a lot of them with Keelan. We've organized that and it's been going great. This week, 2 episodes went up with Keelan and I. They're very funny episodes. Watch the incense one. I really stitched him up. Really, really good long play there. Where he'd never seen incense before. I lit an incense and then put it in front of him so he could experience it. And then I positioned it so that when the ash fell off, it would go onto his bare legs, knowing that in 30 minutes, that would be really funny. And I tell you what, 30 minutes in, very funny. So that's on Patreon. And as well as like a huge backlog of Patreon-only episodes. So please do support the show on Patreon and the channel because we're really building something and we're going to see what happens when I do this for a year. Because I don't know if you can tell, I've been going through it a little bit last year. I feel like last year, nothing terrible happened, which is, wow. Nothing awful happened for a whole year. And that was great. But you know what happens when there's no emergencies and no terrible things happening? Actually, that's not true. There was one horrific thing that happened. Perhaps the worst thing. Okay. But other than that, and we can't talk about that because it's still ongoing. And that's okay because it's out of my hands and I've given it to God and that's it. It's not in my hands. And you know what? Tomorrow can be worried about tomorrow. Today has enough problems, or whatever that wise man said on that mount, right? I can't remember. I only just read it when I was convening with my good friend Matthew. Anyway, I'm trying to introduce a little bit of stability into my life. And I'm trying to not have these huge swings of like incredibly stressful periods of overwork and then dropping it and then switching over to one. I'm trying to just really build a healthy foundation. Because I think like, dude, I post, you know that 2016 trend that everyone's been doing? Because 2016 was 10 years ago. So I did that. I posted like 12 photos of like from 2016. And I got this comment from this comedian, Bron Lewis, who I've met a couple of times. She's really funny. You should check her out. And she said, wow, you were so successful so young. And I read that and I thought, fuck, I was. Like I started this at 18 and then it became my, like it became my full-time job by the time I was like 21. And then I was like doing theaters in my 3rd tour, which was my 3rd year of doing stand-up. I think it was my 4th year of doing stand-up. I was doing theaters. and had this massive online audience. And I did Death Threats Don't Scare Me, the crowdfund, and Spears vs. America, and all these amazing things that I'm so proud of. But it was a whirlwind, and I worked myself to death. I got a radio show and all this kind of stuff. And then I got really sick and all this. You know that story. I'm not going to go into that. But it made me kind of think like, man, and it all came, I don't think I was lucky. It came because like I knew exactly what I was doing as well. Like, that's another thing. I knew what I was doing. You can go and listen to early podcasts where I lay it all out. I'm like, this is what I'm doing and this is when I'm going to do it. And for the most part, I was fucking bang on. I decided I was going to do that comedy special 2 or 3 years before it. I wrote it down 2 or 3 years beforehand. I said, I'm going to do a comedy special. I'm going to crowdfund it and it's going to go like this. And it did. And I'm still the world record holder for the biggest comedy special crowdfund. I beat a guy who was recording his last one before he died of cancer. Feels a little bit like punching down, but hey, that's my career. But it made me kind of think like I have been incredibly successful, and I'm so grateful and I'm so lucky where I've often touched these heights and then fallen back down. I've touched this height and fallen back down. And a lot of that is out of my control. COVID, illness, tragedies, all this shit. But I think a lot of it is like, because I feel like I've been like leaping upwards, and then what the platform that I leaped from crumbled and disappeared, and then I would leap up and that would happen. And then if I ever had to take a step back, I would fall all the way down here. So I think I don't know if this is relatable to anyone, but I think that I really, because I've been so laser focused on this impossible dream, which you do have to be delusionally focused to achieve any sort of greatness. I haven't built any sort of like foundational base, like for my house to my dream to like sit on and be stable upon. Right, like shit, like never having any savings, never having any money, always being like 2 months away from fucking bankruptcy or losing the house or not being able to pay the mortgage, and not being physically healthy, which I've gotten a lot better at, and I am physically healthy now. And not just because after the surgeries, like my diet is really good and my sleep is really good and I look after that and I take vitamins and I make sure I'm eating whole foods and all this kind of stuff. But like with my work, I haven't figured out a healthy foundational process and base that I built. It's like a house of cards that's built very poorly, where like I go all in on touring and then the touring stops, and the tour was very successful, but I come back to the online stuff and that's all fallen apart. And I've just kind of keep going like that, where I do the podcasts, or I do the videos, or I do the stand-up clips, or I do the real talks, and like I haven't ever done one thing for a year, and I haven't ever stayed in one place for a year physically, and I haven't ever like really worked on my own mental health or anything like that. And like this, because from what I learned last year, I just need to build a really solid base to explore from. I think that's what this year is all right, we're just going to take the YouTube really seriously and the podcast really seriously and really, really, really try to grow this. Because last year I had a great 3 months at the start of the year, and then I launched into a tour and it just became impossible. So I'm not touring this year. We're going to do the comedy festival. That's going to go on sale soon, but that's just Melbourne. That's literally just me commuting every night into the city. I can do that and still do the videos. No travel, nothing like that, right? But I'm not going to tour. I'm just going to do YouTube, podcast, short form clips and see where that takes me in a year. And while I'm doing that, instead of spending like every ounce of leftover energy on touring or advertising the tour or traveling or whatever, and then burning out, I'm trying to build a life that I'm very happy to be in. Because I think like I have been trying to escape a lot, and I don't want to do that anymore because it's not healthy, and it's not how anyone should be living their life. Like, I want to be present. I want to be, and I've made huge strides with that, where like I do meal prep and I eat whole foods, and I've been sleeping properly and keeping a regular schedule, and walking the dog, and finding a church and becoming part of a community, and really thinking about spirituality and like my own meaning and my divine purpose, and like what did God actually put me on this planet to do? And it is just to do this, to make people laugh, to bring joy into the world. But I think it's like I was really looking at me and how I've been living my life and what's been going on, and all these awful things that have happened. Like I've never spoken specifically about what has happened, but violent cruelty entered my life, right? Not to me personally, but that's as much as I'll say. And it really made me go, fuck, what type of person do I want to be? What type of life do I want to live? Why do I want to do any of these things that I want to do? Like what sort of impact do I want to have on the world? What sort of impact am I having on the world? What's going on? And I think I was like, because this thing happened, and then I was trapped in this like fearful state of trying to prevent it from happening, something that had already happened. This is what I'm learning through like therapy and God, and reading a lot and thinking about myself, and talking to other people, is like I got stuck in this state of trying to prevent this thing from happening that had already happened, like stuck in this state of trying to do the impossible without even realizing that that's where I was, because logically that's stupid. You can't stop something from happening that has already happened. But that's what PTSD is, essentially. It's hypervigilance. You're waiting for the thing to happen. You're trying to stop a thing from happening that has already happened. So all of that was going on inside me while I'm touring and constantly leaving my life. Like the road is so awesome. I love going on the road. I love meeting new people. I love all this stuff and making people laugh, and I get all these experiences and writing. But like I was also running away and escaping and not living in my reality, right? Where I would be like, oh man, everything will be fine. I just need to get back on the road. I just need to not be in Australia. I need to not be in this house where so many things have happened. I need to be away from, things that remind me of this, is what I realized I had been doing. And I can't be doing that, because I've always wanted to be a very successful comedian and a very good comedian. I've always wanted to live in the States and to do comedy, to live in New York and be like a comic that does clubs. I don't need to be famous. I don't need to be rich. I need to be a comedian that's regularly performing and making people laugh and bringing joy into the world. It's like, it's what God made me to do. It's my purpose in this life. I don't want to get there just because I'm desperately running away from my life and the things that I've been through. Because if I get, either way, I'll get there. I fully believe that I will be able to make it to the States and be a comic there. I need to get there the healthy way, which is, I'm leaving because I'm ready, and I'm leaving because I've done the things that I need to do, and because my career is ready, my mindset's ready, and my mental health is ready, and because I've healed, and I'm ready to take on more. I don't want to get there because I'm desperately running away to escape my own head and the awful things that have happened in Australia for me. Because obviously bad things happen no matter where you are. And I feel like if I just desperately escaped to this place where I do actually want to be, because that's my dream. But if I get there via desperately escaping and then something happens or it doesn't fix all my problems, I'm going to fucking hate it. So I think like for me this year, and you know, I had my birthday, I turned 32, and it made me think like, man, I remember like when I was like 25, when things were like right after, I can't remember, like 2018, was I 25 then? 2018, whenever Death Threats Don't Scare Me came out, and then I went over to the States and I did Spears vs. America, and that really went well. You know, 2018, 2019, I was like, man, I'm making it. This is great. I'm doing it. It's really working. I'm making money. I'm progressing. I'm loving what I'm doing. I'm really building this thing. And this is before I was sick, so I had no idea what was on the horizon for me. But I remember thinking so often, like, dude, I will not spend my 30s in Australia. And it's looking like I'm going to be at least 33, turning 33 here. It's just funny. It doesn't fill me with despair like it maybe would have a couple years ago. It's just makes me laugh that like life doesn't go how you want it to a lot. And part of the reason why I'm trying to slow down is to like be okay with that. I think that I had a really good run when I was very young. I had like first mover's advantage. I was like first to everything. I was such an innovator. Like so many people who are really, really successful now started after I did and just did what I did, and didn't have a lot of awful things happen to them like I had. And that's how it goes. And I truly believe like all these things will just make me and they've made me much deeper, much more fully realized human being and a better man, and able to confront and talk about difficult things and help other people and relate to them. And all of that will feed back into my comedy and make me a better comedian, because it's just a deepening of the soul. And it's brought me to God, which has been like an amazing thing and a great blessing. But yeah, like this year for me really just has to be building a really strong foundation upon which I will build the bonfire that is my dream again. Because I think what has been happening is COVID and the surgeries was so difficult for me because it had nothing to do with me. I've always been fine with failing. Like failing never, it's obviously, I don't like it, but failing to me was always okay because it meant that I tried something. And I would always learn from it. So like if I did something and it didn't work, I'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to change this, blah, blah. And it's like a good thing. If you're failing, it's actually really good, because it means you're trying. And if you're learning from it, you will be less likely to fail again. You need to be failing upwards. Every successful person says this. It's a lot harder to actually do that. But I never really struggled with failure, because I always would just try another thing. But what I did really struggle with was failure that was no fault of my own. It's not even failure. You can't even really categorize it as failure. It's just like immovable objects. I've always struggled with. And that was me getting sick. That was COVID. Like that, this shit was completely out of my control. It had nothing to do with me. There was no way to overcome it other than wait. And it did my head in. And so that when those immovable objects moved of their own accord, I became healthy, COVID lockdowns ended. It was like this frantic rush to, I have to fucking bounce back. I've got to do this. And then I'd build this fucked, shaky tower that just kept collapsing. And the tours were great and the shows were great. I loved doing them. And, didn't lose the house, made just enough money to kind of survive, but they weren't building something long term, which is I've always historically done. And building something that's a long term thing is difficult because you kind of you got to dangle the carrot. You don't get the carrot. I don't get to go on these big crazy tours and experience the road like that. It's like, nah, I need to take a step back from that and build everything stems from the YouTube channel and the podcast especially. And if I am not feeling good here in my head and in my heart, I can't consistently make videos. So it's really just kind of like, okay, I want all of this. I want this impossible dream. I want to be an immigrant living in a foreign country doing entertainment. It's impossible. It's fucking crazy, right? If I'm going to have even a remote shot at that impossible dream, I got to sort my head out. I got to sort my body out. I got to do this, the online thing really well, really properly, because it doesn't matter how many tickets I can sell in Australia at all. If I'm doing fucking arenas, if I go over to the States, you can't take that with you. That's income that cannot be made over there because you can't sell tickets there. If you just focus on Australia and the UK and stuff like that. What I can do is grow this show. And that's why I need to take a step back and be like, okay, if I'm actually going to make it, it's going to take years of sustained effort and doing one thing really well, which is how I started my career. I was just like, I'm going to post on Facebook and I'm just going to nail Facebook. And I did that really well. I built this huge audience on Facebook. Facebook was like TikTok back in 2012. And then I was like, okay, I've got this audience on Facebook. I'm going to do YouTube. And then I did YouTube really, really well. And that's all I did is some Facebook and some YouTube. And then I was okay, I've got YouTube and Facebook. I'm going to get on stage. And I started doing that and I added that in. But because I had this base of Facebook, YouTube, and then I started the podcast, I was able, okay, I'm going to hire Keelan. And then I could do the touring while bringing someone on the road, and the online stuff didn't fall apart, and I was able to do it all at once. And that's what I need to build. And I can't build that if I'm not okay in my head. And I think I've been like really frustrated, and I think it makes a lot of sense that, oh, fuck, I have trauma now. That sucks. This awful shit has happened and it's wounded me. And I've been like, I don't want to fucking be wounded. I don't want to have these feelings that I have to overcome. I don't want to have PTSD. I don't want to have this fear that if one thing goes wrong, everything's going to go wrong. I hate having this idea in my head that like, oh man, things going well is just the calm before the storm. Because, every time lockdown ended, I was like, we're getting really hopeful again. And then it would happen again. And then lockdown actually did properly end. And then I had to go through my surgeries, and every time something looked better, I would go through another surgery. And every time something looked better, I'd go through another surgery. And like, that was like fucking 4 years of my life. And it kind of trained my brain to be like, oh, when you feel safe and when things are going well, that's when something really bad happens. And, historically, the last 5 years, that has been true. Because even when I got through my surgeries, this awful fucking thing happened to someone that I loved. And it's really fucked me up. And I got to address that. And I don't want to have to address that. I don't want to be like this hurt and wounded person. But I am. And I have to move through that and build up again and build a healthy base from which to expand from. Because if you can't do that, you can't do anything. So I'm really proud of myself for last year especially, because I got to get, I made some great videos, and I didn't make as many videos as I wanted to, and I didn't kind of, the big swing wasn't what it was supposed to be, but the tour was so good and the show was so good and so many people came out. So last year was awesome, But to do that, I had to sacrifice the big swing. Is I think what I've like realized is like, okay, I can do an amazing tour or I can have an amazing year of online content. I can't do both. But if I have an amazing year of online content, there will be enough money to hire someone to be able to help me do both. So that's the key, is just 2 to 3 YouTube videos every week. 2 to 5 short form videos every week. A fucking banger podcast every week. A banger Patreon podcast every week. That's it. For 1 year. And we'll see what happens. So that's, yeah, I think that's where I am. I don't know if that's relatable. And I think like, maybe I've been hiding this as well a little bit from the YouTube view, or maybe not even hiding it on, like I haven't been talking about it on the podcast. I think because I just did not want to be dealing with it. I've just kind of been ignoring it. Like, oh, I'm healthy now and lockdowns are over and I've got this tour and then this fucking looming thing in my head is something I need to sort out. And I have been sorting out and I've been doing so much better, you know, like God has been so good to me and for me, and going to church every Sunday and plugging in with a community and having friends outside of comedy and like an actual community. I had no idea what I was missing. When you're raised without that, you just don't even know and you think that that's normal, and it's so not. It's actually a very bad thing to deprive yourself of when literally pretty much anywhere you live, you can just walk into a building on a Sunday and you will plug into a network of people that love you and who will help you. I can't believe that actually exists. But it does, and it's real. And even if you think God is rubbish, that is real and that exists. And all you have to do is go and sing some songs. You know, and it exists all over the planet. You know, like what was so amazing this last year, right? Because I only started going to church in January last year. But because I did that, every weekend, no matter what city I was, no matter what country I was in, even in fucking Singapore, I was able to walk into a building and there's just people who are like, "Hi, you're another member of our," and you just plug in. Like in Glasgow, Scotland, I went to this when I was touring around the UK. I was going to lots of different denominations of churches because I've been going to one in Australia and there's only one around me. And I wanted to try a bunch of different ones to see like, oh, what's the Church of England like? What's the Church of Scotland like? What's a Catholic church in England like? And I tried a bunch of different ones, and I went to a Church of England one, a Catholic one, this and that. And then I was in Scotland. In Glasgow, I went to this a Russian Orthodox service because it was like a Thursday and it was around the corner from my hotel and it was on. So I'm like, I'll just go. And there was like 10 people there. I got to talk to the bishop and we had a great conversation. And I loved the service. I loved the divine liturgy. They had incense and it was so like reverent, and people stood up the entire time. And it was great. I loved it. And I thought, okay, well, I would like to explore that in Australia. So I look up and turns out there's a Russian Orthodox place around the corner from me. So I go there and it's at a conference room. It's not at a church, like a little conference room. I text the guy beforehand. I go, hey, is this happening? And he goes, yeah, sure, come. He texts me back in English. I'm like, great. I get there and the one in Glasgow I went to was all English. The one I went to in Frankston, Russian. It was all Russian. There were only 7 people. I was the only guy that didn't speak Russian. Everyone else was like, who the fuck is this guy? What's he doing here? They were lovely, but they were all like, what's going on? They did, it was in this tiny little conference room and they did confession beforehand, which I'd never seen before, never seen confession, but they just did it because it was in this little conference room in a community center. They did confession like around the corner and you could just hear it. You could just hear it. People having confession. And thankfully, for my sake, it was in Russian, so I had no idea what was being said. But all the other people were just like doing their best impression of not listening to the full confession. And you could just hear the whole thing. So funny. Is that a sin if you listen to confession, but it's in a language you can't understand? Is that still a sin? Because I listened. Didn't know what was being said, but I did listen. I couldn't help but listen. There was no other option. Otherwise you'd have to stand on the other. They had like a little privacy screen. You know when those romantic movies where the woman undresses behind the privacy screen in her bedroom, that fold out thing? They had one of those, but for confession, you could just fucking hear everything. You know? So funny. So they're all singing in Russian, and they do the whole hour and a half divine liturgy in a language that I do not understand. I'm standing there just like crossing myself when other people do, because I think that's what you're supposed to do. And God bless them. They were lovely afterwards, but it was like one of those things where it's like, this is for Russian people to be Russian with other Russians. It's not really. And I messaged the guy in Scotland, the bishop that I spoke to. I was like, I went to this thing and it wasn't in English. So I felt really embarrassed. But the Russian priest talked to me afterwards in English and recommended me an English-speaking one in Melbourne. So I'm going to that on Sunday. I'm recording this Saturday. I wish I recorded it Friday, but now I'm about to get on a train in 40-degree heat so I can go to this thing tomorrow. And hopefully it will be in English. Because I literally have texted about 7 different priests from Orthodox parishes all around me, and none of them are in English. They're all like Serbian language, Greek language, Russian language. One was even in Hindi. There's an Indian Orthodox church. I didn't even know that those guys existed. What incense do they swing? Butter chicken? You know, I don't know. Either I'm going on a great spiritual journey with God or I'm experiencing religious psychosis. We'll see. In 6 months, we'll see. No, I'm feeling good about it. I'm approaching it with curiosity and openness, and it seems to be benefiting my life, and it feels right. So I'm going to continue to explore, as they say. Anyway, what else have we got here? Speaking of churches, in America, did you see those ICE protesters, the people protesting ICE? Which, by the way, as an aspiring immigrant to the United States, I love ICE and everything that they do. They can do no wrong. So anyone who thinks that ICE has done something wrong, I disagree. I think they're awesome. I would join them if I could. And just in case any ICE agents are listening to this, some ICE protesters in Minnesota stormed a church where they believed a pastor was a member of ICE. First of all, fucking crazy to have your pastor be suiting up as ICE on the weekends. Sorry, on the weekdays. Weekends are for church. Weekdays are for kicking hardworking Mexican mothers out of the country without their children. That's hectic. If that's true, that's full on. I don't know. I don't know how I would feel about my pastor being an agent of ICE, but you know, different strokes for different folks. I watched this video of like hundreds of protesters storming this church during the service to scream, scaring the shit out of women and children, making kids cry, screaming in the faces of people that are worshiping God on a Sunday in a church. And all I saw was like, man, if there was one way to turn like most of America against your cause, it is doing that. You know, disrupting a church service. Do we want to win hearts and minds here or not? Sorry, do you want to win hearts and minds here or not? As an aspiring immigrant, as you know, if you were to ask my favorite department agency, first it would be the tax office. Second, it'd be ICE. My favorite foreign country, Israel. But anyway, this journalist, former CNN anchor, Don Lemon, was there documenting it and interviewing people. And the video is so funny. He's like interviewing people as they're coming out of their church service. Be like, so how does it feel to have your Sunday fucking ruined? So how does it feel that you've just been intimidated by protesters and had your children screamed at until they cry? You know, that's the state of journalism right now. It's just like fucking filming people in distress, being like, how do you feel about that? Do you want to say anything that'll get you fired from your job as well? Hey, while you're in an incredibly fearful and emotional state, would you like to say something that'll get you fired from your job? But because he was there as a journalist, all these people are saying, oh, he needs to be arrested. Right, because I think they're Pam Bondi, my girlfriend Pam Bondi, who wants to arrest all of these protesters for. There's like a KKK act that they used against the KKK because they used to intimidate black people outside churches and schools and stuff, and they're trying to use the laws that they used to stop that from happening to stop these anti-ICE protesters from being able to protest places of worship. Now, I think disrupting a church service, storming a mosque, a synagogue, totally not on. I think it's very bad. I think it should not be allowed. I think it's a scary thing to do to people, and I think especially, dude, with the amount of attacks on synagogues during services, on churches during services. The amount of times that shit has happened, the last thing I would want to be doing as a protester is storming a church, because there's got to be a few dudes packing heat in those buildings that are on high alert. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's a disaster waiting to happen. Like when an angry mob storms a church, your first thought probably isn't just, oh, they're upset about the immigration enforcement. It's probably your first thought is like, fuck, they're going to kill us. You know, whether you're in a synagogue or a mosque or a church, it's a very fearful situation to be put in, that I feel like is it shouldn't be allowed, just because shit will kick off. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, people want to arrest Don Lemon, which I think is crazy, because he was there as a journalist. And we go, oh, he had knowledge that this was going to happen. It's like, yeah, that's what a journalist is. They have sources and they have foreknowledge of things, and they show up and they document it, and it's news. Like, I don't think he should be arrested for fucking documenting this protest, because that's how. I mean, if you really want it to never happen again, someone has to document it when it does happen, or you'll never know about this shit, right? But Pam Bondi has moved to have him arrested, but a judge is declining to sign off on charges against Don Lemon, the former CNN anchor, in connection with a protest at a Minnesota church over the weekend, according to a person familiar with the matter. The magistrate's decision enraged the Attorney General, my girlfriend Pam Bondi, according to NBC News and CNN. The refusal comes as Donald Trump and other allies have called for Lemon to be arrested after he attended and broadcast a protest in which demonstrators interrupted a service at City's Church in St. Paul over the weekend. Protesters said that they were there because a pastor at the church was the acting field director of a local ICE office, and videos of the incident went wild. Is that true, though? I haven't seen any confirmation that a pastor of this place was an actual ICE agent. I wouldn't be surprised if it is true, but I haven't seen any actual evidence, and no news article is addressing the allegation that he's an ICE agent. It's not in this. It's really weird. But yeah, I don't think people storming places of worship is a good thing for the country or a good thing for anyone to do. And it certainly doesn't, I don't think it helps your cause at all. Trump has condemned Lemon's actions. I saw him the way he walked in that church. It was terrible. I have such respect for that pastor. He was so calm. He was so nice. He was just accosted. What they did in that church was horrible. Bondi announced 2 of the protesters had been arrested on Thursday morning, all caps. "We do not tolerate attacks on places of worship," she said in a post. Yeah, I think protesting at church is pretty fucking grim behavior, or any place of worship. It's no good. Protesting outside a church, I don't have a problem with, but storming inside a mosque or a synagogue or whatever, it's just like it's a fucking terrifying thing to do to all of the people in there, and I feel like it puts everyone in an unsafe position. But anyway, should we do some emails here? If you want to, we'll do a. How long are we on here? Oh, 1 hour 30. I've got 2 emails here. I've got 4 here, but we'll do 2. And if you want your email to be printed out and added to the pile, send it through to podcast@loosespears.com. We've got this email from Adam. "I'm engaging with my local community and it has improved my life. Hi, Lewis. I have a story I thought you would find heartwarming, and it came about because of your stories about community engagement. They got me inspired with ideas to help out. I recently met an 83-year-old Ukrainian immigrant named Ivan." That's so Ukrainian. "He's living alone in my community in a small Tasmanian town. I've wanted to be more involved and give back in my community, but I didn't know how. After talking to Ivan for about 10 minutes, I realized he had no one in his life. Long divorced, but now a self-described hermit, he also has a sizable farm property outside of town that doesn't have phone service, that he works and cultivates all by himself to be as self-sufficient as possible and trade the rest for what he doesn't grow." That's awesome. Good on Ivan. Tell you what, he's got no kids, no wife. You might be able to get yourself into the will. No, that's not why we help out at our community, although... This raised huge alarm bells for his safety, that he does all of this by himself, including managing several large beehives. Dude, get some honey. I bought some honey online from some monks in Sydney, a monastery that has beehives. The best honey I've ever had in my life. Maybe next episode I'll read out the name of the monastery. You got to buy some honey from them. I bought some coffee, not as good. The honey, amazing. Monk honey. You got to get some holy honey, dude. So good. You know what else? Honey really helps with your allergies. I didn't know this. If you struggle with hay fever, buy honey that's made by bees that make the honey out of native flowers that give you hay fever. You eat honey every day made from flowers that make you sneeze, you'll never get it again. I don't have hay fever anymore. I used to have it so bad. My nose would run, my eyes would well up. Every spring, every summer, like it's summer now. I don't have any hay fever because I eat honey made by Australian bees that make it from Australian flowers that has pollen that used to set me off. Because I've ingested it, my body just goes, that's food. You're not allergic to it. So cool. Sounds like rubbish naturopath wives' tale bullshit. Swear by it. Completely fixed my hay fever. Where am I? He manages several large beehives, raising pigs at times, and a sizable vegetable garden. I immediately offered my time and services as I am a full-time farmhand and live close by. We arranged a time and day within the week, and we worked a 4-hour day of weed pulling, tending to his crops, and preparing new soil for the next crop, all while dodging his milk jugs of piss, which he assures me deters possums and wallabies, but I'm not convinced. Awesome. I was blown away with his mental cognition and his physical ability. How he moves, gets down on his hands and knees. You guys fucking in those fields? To tend to crops, and his ability to work so efficiently is incredible. He moves better than most 60-year-olds I know in my life. Speaking to Ivan while we worked, I learned so much about this man and his life, and I could tell that he missed human connection. Despite his challenges he has with his social life, it has now been several weeks, and Ivan and I are becoming more familiar with each other and building a friendship that is mutually beneficial and enriching. This is so cool. We are now working on framing beehives, and he's going to teach me to keep bees and will let me keep a hive on his property. That's fucking awesome. I love community. I love helping out fellow man. I love hanging out with ancient, decrepit senior citizens. You learn so much. Who the fuck else is going to teach you how to keep bees? That's awesome. I want a beehive. I visited him for Christmas and gave him some fresh cherries as a small gift. This whole experience has been so unforeseen and so enjoyable and meaningful. I get what you mean when you talk about your community and your church. I look forward to my time with Ivan as part of my routine, and I can tell that he really enjoys our time as well. For anyone out there wanting to help in some way but not sure how, just start talking to people around you and you will find people who would love a little bit of your time and care from a stranger. Have a shit one and all the best for the big swing of 2026. Adam. Dude, that's fucking beautiful. God bless you, Adam. That's amazing. I love that. That's such a heartwarming story. I almost feel bad ripping up your email, but if I don't do it, I'll read it out again. That's awesome. And that's really what it is about. And that's what I'm really enjoying. There's such a grounding, beautiful, wholesome, loving experience of being plugged in your community that we have lost, that we did not even know that we lost. I never even knew that this was out there. But from engaging with and spending time putting effort into building a community that I'm a part of, that I live around, has been so wonderful. And it's been something that I've been able to contribute to and learn from. Like most recently, I repainted the cross that's outside my church. It looked ratty. It looked gross. The paint was chipping off. The wood was affected by the weather. And I would walk past it and I'd be like, man, someone needs to fix this. I thought, fuck, this is my building. I'm going to fix it. Went down to Bunnings, got paint made up, spent a few days painting it. All these old people that have walked past this cross that was like falling apart and now go, oh my God, it's so good. You know? And being able to take ownership of your community and help out other people without even getting anything in return is so amazing. Like, yeah, dude, find your Ivan. That's awesome. I love that, Adam. Thank you for telling me about that. That's amazing. I hope it inspires more people to do stuff. And yeah, community, I talk about church a lot because it's what I have engaged with, but it's not just that. It's volunteering somewhere. It's talking to people when you're out in the community. It's instead of staying at home and reading, go out to a third space, a cafe or a library, and fucking do it there and see who you meet. Community must be fostered and built by you because if we don't, it dies. That's what I've really learned. And since I've engaged with my community, it's growing, dude. And you will be astonished at how the presence of a young person revitalizes a community and attracts more and encourages people to continue to contribute and build. Like it's where my community was a year ago to now, it's unrecognizable. And all the oldies say that, you know, it's so cool. Like one woman said a couple months ago, she goes, you know, Lewis, you've brought a lot of life into this place and it's just really good for us old folk. It's so nice. Last email, then we're going to get out of here. And there'll be an episode on Patreon up for you as well. A literal lottery. Hey Lou, long-time listener here. I am a musician/composer, so I was hype when I first heard your literal lottery rap a few episodes back and also laughing hysterically. I sampled the vocals, recorded some keys, bass, synth, and made it into a little song. I hope you enjoy it. You're free to post and use it however you like. If you want to give me a shout out, my Instagram is @jcrown_music. jcrown_music. All right, let's check it out. I listened to this before I did the episode, and it's a banger. So that's how we're going to end this episode, is a literal lottery by me and jcrown_music. Give him a follow on Instagram. I will put him on my stories. All right. Thank you so much for supporting the show. I'm going to continue on Patreon. There's a book review. There's 2 episodes that dropped this week, so check those out. I've been Lewis Spears. Thank you for coming with me on this journey. I'm going to try and be a little bit more honest about what's going on in my life on this podcast, because I think it's important. I think it's helpful. And I think if I'm not doing these huge tours, what we can do is just build the momentum of this show and the mission statement of this year, which is build a great foundation upon which to leap from. All right? I'm going to go to this church. I'm really nervous about it. I hope they speak English. I'm Lewis Spears. Have a shit one. Bye. America is so funny, man. I love America. I can't wait to live there. Donald Trump's my president, and Israel's the best country in the world. I want to live in America, man. I need to sort that visa. Every day it looks at the same time more difficult to get in and also kind of less appealing. Man, I was so shitty. I've been refreshing. There's this program called the Diversity Visa Lottery Program that I've been entering every year since 2012, except for many of the years when I forgot to do it and missed the deadline. I went, fuck! But how it works is certain sections of the world have an opportunity to sign up for a literal lottery. A literal lottery. I'm interested in pottery. I'm making so much money that you'd think there's a lot of me. So fucking smart, the rest of you got lobotomy. I'm taking it all like this is a robbery. A literal lottery. I'm interested in pottery. I'm making so much money that you'd think there's a lot of me. So fucking smart, the rest of you got lobotomy. I'm taking it all like this is a robbery. A literal lottery. 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 I'm interested in pottery. I'm making so much money that you think there's a lot of me. So fucking smart, the rest of you got lobotomy. I'm taking it all like this is a robbery.